Welcome to episode 8 of Just Another Podcast. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brian
Woo!
Keyser. Yeah, how's it going, man?
It's going well. It's going. It's a
I like your
nice
Celtic shirt.
day. You like that? I knew we'd be talking some Celtics today,
Yeah.
so I had to
I got my,
bust out.
No Dunks podcast, their Chicago Bulls themed
Oh,
t-shirt on, which is kind of fun because anybody listens to this podcast on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, they have no idea what we're wearing because they don't see the video. That's what I always
oh
love about
man.
play like Joe Rogan's podcast or things like that, where I'm like listening to it in the car on the way to work. And they're like, look at this video. And I'm like, I can't. I'm listening to you on the audio podcast.
Right? It's like not made for all audiences, but made for all audiences
Yes, exactly.
at the same
So
time.
Brian and I come back every 2 weeks, hopefully, to talk just random stuff. But I think that both of us are going through withdrawals of basketball. Um, and so we thought we'd talk a little bit basketball. We give forewarning ahead of time to anybody who's listening. This is going to be mostly basketball. I was looking at House of Highlights, the Instagram, the other night, and I just looked
It's a
over at
good one.
Taylor and I go, I want basketball back so bad. Even though it's June and we would basically be watching the NBA finals right now. So
Right.
it'd be almost over anyway, but I just feel like I just know they didn't finish the season and they're talking about coming back and I just want it back. I want to be able to watch the basketball games at night on TV and enjoy some hoops. Um, hopefully soon we will be able to, huh?
I do hope it will be back soon. And I hope it's like good action. Like
Yes.
not I don't know. I'm hopeful for it, but at the same time, there's like a little piece of me that's like, is this going to be worth the wait and the investment of time and all of that stuff? I saw like the NFL's thinking about pushing back, and so it's just like that makes you think, oh, like are now NBA players going to be wondering, oh, should we wait? So I think it's going to be good. I'm excited. I like the format of it. Um, I think it has potential to be great. So we'll
I
see though.
think that the NFL pushing back and different sports pushing back and doing these things, if everybody follows the rules. So if you go in and you say you have to stay in this what they're calling the Disney World bubble, um,
Right.
you do that. You don't interact with people outside this bubble. You don't go on trips or random stuff anywhere. There should be no reason that anybody contracts COVID. It makes it difficult for people to play. You know what I mean? But there's going to be that one person who's like, "Oh, I went to a nightclub or something,"
Right.
and they bring it back, and everybody in the NBA gets COVID, and they're all like, "Why did you bring back the NBA?" And Kyrie Irving ends up being right, which no one wants that. And it's just. But the other thought about it was I was doing some research was there are players like Tatum doesn't know if he wants to come back during this, and it's not COVID related. His is he's got a contract getting ready to be signed,
Uh,
a max contract, and he's like, I can't risk being injured. And so he's like, well, this season we maybe the whole rest versus rust thing we talked about last
yeah.
time, which is like maybe he will get injured and he will get screwed. I'm like, he's gonna get a contract, whether or not he gets injured or not. Don't just play basketball.
See, yeah, just I get it. I get it. I understand you need money and like all of that stuff. You got to get paid. But there's a part of me that just, especially after watching all these documentaries and you see like the Celtics versus Lakers. I don't know if you saw that
Mhm.
three-part came out a couple years ago, like that, and then you see The Last Dance and stuff. And I know that contracts have always been a part of this discussion and all that, but you see like the mentality of Michael Jordan and like Larry Bird and these guys that like no, they're showing up and they're gonna win. Like they
Mhm.
show up to win. They're not like, well, I need to get paid later on. Like that just it bugs me about Tatum. And I get it's his first big contract that he's gonna be looking at. So, that's a lot of money. But
It is, but in the same sense, like it could be the difference between a couple $1,000,000 to us, average people living in Maine, working 9 to 5 jobs, 40 hours a week, 40 plus hours a week, and
yeah,
not making $1,000,000 makes all of us go, you're still going to make millions of dollars. So whether or not you get injured and you make 10 times that, or you make
Hmm.
5 times that, or whatever. It all depends. Like, just play basketball.
Right.
Speaking of that and going into that, kind of like a cool segue is, did you see the list of things that they're going to get in Disney World for these players? Like what they're
No.
actually. So here, let me go down a little bit of this list. Okay. So there's going to be player lounges that have NBA 2K available for them to play. There'll be barbers there and manicurists. Okay. I just also
What about a
read that
pedicurist?
I don't know exactly, right? I just
It's not the
also
same.
read that the NFL or EA Sports is letting them play Madden 21 before it comes out, so they can play Madden. There'll be movie screenings with the DJ and potentially comedians coming in or bands coming in to perform for them. In these movie screenings, they'll be able to watch unreleased movies. I don't know if
Huh.
that means like Disney movies that were like are in the vault, or like movies that haven't come out yet, or whatever.
Yeah.
The ability to go to other games, other NBA games, which to me is kind of cool. Thinking about like you're playing and your competition could be sitting in the rafters. It's like playing a high
Yeah.
school tournament or a
Hmm.
like college hockey tournament or something like that. Like if you're in the same weekend, the teams that are not
Yeah.
playing at that time sit in the crowd and watch the games. A 24-hour VIP concierge, on-site health professionals, hotline. So if you find anybody not following COVID rules and regulations, it's an anonymous hotline you can call and tattle on someone.
The rat
Uh,
line.
Supposedly, there's a
Jeez.
smart ring they're going to wear that tracks your vitals. So to make sure you're
Oh,
not getting sick and so on.
it's probably
So
like the
that's
Disney Magic Pass thing you have to wear.
so I started reading this list of things, and I was like, I'm going back to work soon. Like I've been working this whole time, but like going back and
Yeah.
interacting with the people I can't track where they've been or what they're doing, or
Right.
who they touched or didn't. And I don't have any of that. And I love my job. The company I work for is amazing. Warner Brewing Company has all the cool things, but that's pretty crazy. To me, I'm like, these guys get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to play a game, and
Yeah.
they have like a resort. Like it's they're going on a cruise on land. Like they have us like.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah, but
don't
they're gonna
think
be
that these.
stuck in a bubble for what, 4 months?
Yeah, but
That stuff will probably still seem pretty cool, but I bet that'll get old after the first month. And part
I
of me
just.
wonders too, like you think how many of those professional athletes are playing Madden before it comes out anyways?
Hmm.
How many of them are getting, I feel like half of this stuff is like this is stuff that you normally get anyways. We're just gonna make it a little easier for you to get. But
Well, also, is
but
it
still.
perception for us fans?
Yeah, that
People are like, oh, maybe they're rushing back into this, but look at all the stuff we're giving them. Like, look at the
yeah,
the, the resort they're gonna get. So don't worry, these
could make
players
it
are gonna be taken care of. It's like
right. But at the same time, I think the general public thinks they're overpaid babies half the time anyway. So
it's just so this bubble makes sense. Like the bubble boy. I don't know if you watched
yeah,
Seinfeld, the bubble boy. Like this
yeah,
makes sense. Put them in a bubble because COVID in Florida has skyrocketed in the past couple of weeks.
yeah.
Like
It's
insanely skyrocketed, and they're gonna be like, let's send all professional basketball players in the United States to Florida and let them hang out for a couple months. But so hopefully this will keep them all happy. Maybe Kyrie will show up because of all this stuff. You think so?
Kyrie. Oh, he'll be there. Probably just being a jabroni.
David
I
Bertans
hate
too of
Kyrie.
the Bullet said he wasn't going to play. John Wall was like, if I wasn't injured, I'd play. I wouldn't play. So all these people are like putting
John
their moral
Wall.
ground down, saying they wouldn't play. It's so weird
Yeah.
because,
It's so easy to say that when you're injured and you wouldn't play anyways.
or like some of these players, what team is going to fight these people? Like we're talking to our employees as they come back. We're like, hey, we'll slowly get you back. And
Hmm.
excuse me, when we talked about opening potentially at the beginning of June originally, we said let's not rush people back. If they don't want to come back, we won't push them into it right now because it is an unsafe time and you don't know what's going on and so on. And let them
Yeah.
stay home, collect their unemployment, and so on. Obviously, LeBron's not getting unemployment, right? I mean, like he's supposedly he already got all of his money for this year anyway. Like he gets paid differently than other NBA players. So if LeBron was like, I just don't want to play, are they actually going to withhold salary from him? Or are they just gonna like be like, okay, whatever, because we're not gonna force you to come play in
Oh, I think they should.
Orlando? I think so too. I just don't think that teams are gonna battle that, like because of the fact that it
Yeah.
looks bad for them.
It's kind of like,
But
hey, a mask is required here, but we're
yes,
not enforcing it.
yes. So I'm wondering
But
if it's to me, it's like, well, yeah, obviously, if you're going to get paid millions of dollars to sit home, I would choose that. It's the same thing. Some of these part-time employees who work, 20, 25 hours a week right now, and someone's like, hey, we're opening back up. They're
Yeah.
getting $250 from the state and $600 from the government. Why would you come back? You're making more money on unemployment than you were, your hourly wage. So these NBA players, is there an incentive for them to come back? Like if you're already making millions of dollars and sitting at home and with your family and not doing this basketball thing, and you're the eighth place team in your conference, that you're
Right.
likely not going to win the championships. It's not like
That's
you're really.
what's
I mean, these
that's
top
what's
teams,
difficult.
your Celtics, your Lakers, your Bucks, your Clippers. Those are the teams that are fighting for an actual NBA championship. So why wouldn't you? Even though we talked about the idea of there probably being an asterisk,
Hmm.
next to this season, it was a weird season. They played an NBA bubble, and um,
Yeah.
is there enough incentive for these eighth place teams to come? I mean, maybe it's the first year that's a better chance they're going to actually make it because of the weirdness of it. Like, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Some of these teams that didn't make or aren't really going to win the NBA championship might have a better chance of winning it because of this really weird format they're playing.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely. I feel like it makes it almost anyone's opportunity. Like it makes it so that I feel like anyone has a chance right now. But at the same time, is there going to be that level of competition of we need to win this championship because there's going to be an asterisk. Like it just makes you wonder a little bit. Like LeBron, is he thinking like I came to LA to win a championship and I did all this for the sake of winning a championship and all that stuff? Is he still has that? Does he still have that mentality, or is he thinking I don't want to win my championship in LA this way? Or is anyone thinking that? Is the Celtics thinking that, or are people thinking I want to win, but I don't want to be the team that wins this one?
Correct, but in the same sense, do you want to be a team that doesn't win it? Like if you look at the other side
It's
of it,
true.
it's like when you look back, we watched The Last Dance. Brian watched it, I watched it, and we saw these 6 championships for the unbelievable '90s Bulls. And you talk about 6 rings from Michael Jordan, and Scottie Pippen. You talk about 6 rings. 25 years from now, LeBron has 6, 7 rings, whatever he has for rings at that time. Do
Yeah.
people look back and go, "Oh, but one of them was in that weird season for the
Well,
COVID," or you
it's
just go,
like
"He has
the
6 rings." Like it's not like.
yeah. It's like that interview with Brian Scalabrine, if you ever seen that. And they're like, "Are you, disappointed that you didn't get to play in the finals, and
Yeah,
stuff?" And he's like, "Dude, I just won a championship." He's like, "In 5 years, I'll tell my kids that I played. In 10 years, I'll tell my kids I started." He's like, "In 20 years, I'll tell my kid like I'll have been the MVP." Like, you're not gonna care as time goes on. So I guess you could look at it that way. I always thought that was hilarious when he said that. I'll tell my kids I was the MVP because
well, because
a
it's
ring is a
a
ring,
ring is a ring. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing as a championship's a
But
championship. Like when you look back and the Celtics have what 17. So you look back and you see the Celtics win this year, they'd have 18. I don't. There'd be some people that would be like, oh, it's not as equal to the steroid era in baseball where like Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame because of his connection to
right,
steroids. This is more like I try to think about it, if I was an NBA player, like this is something you can't. This is nothing you can control. Just go
yeah,
with it and continue the season. Maybe all these NBA players should be required to watch the Last Dance so they can have the mentality and the
that
motivation that Michael
killer
Jordan had.
instinct.
Use this to fuel you. Oh, people are not
Fish.
taking this as serious. I'm going to win this championship right now to prove to them that we still can
Yeah,
be able to do it. Like, I don't
it's
know.
just a different game. I feel like people have more feelings than they used to have. People get hurt over things. Money is such a big aspect of it, and I feel like you look at Michael Jordan and he had the flu and that whole that game where he's like on death's door, it looks like, but he's out there competing, giving it everything he has. And then you have these guys that are, oh well, I don't want to. I tweaked my ankle a little bit, and it's
I have a
game 7 of
hangnail.
the finals, and it's like you're not going to play game 7. You know,
I have a hangnail. They won't play. Or
yeah,
I slept weird on my leg or something. They won't play. Whereas Michael Jordan's out there like literally on the brink of puking every 10 seconds, and he's out
yeah.
there playing his butt off. it showed the difference, and it's funny to segue kind of into a little bit of the Last Dance. Is we talked, my friends and I talked about it, or Asa and I talked about it at work. Was they made Pippen look out like a pansy, but in the end of it, if you look back, there was moments of him being very selfish and very on like the opposite of Michael Jordan at aspects
Yeah.
at points, because Michael Jordan would be out there busting his butt to try to get things done, and he's like, oh, well, you didn't pick me to get the last shot in the game, I'm just not going to play then, and then sit
Right.
down. It's like Pippen was like the modern day NBA player, where Jordan was part of the 80s and 70s NBA players that moved
Yeah.
up. Like Pippen had that aspect of, I don't know. If it's not perfect for me, I'm not going to do it. Honestly,
Right.
at moments, I could consider him to be closest to Kyrie Irving, an excellent NBA player who plays well with other, like when he's on a team with another star, he does well. And then, but also
Yeah.
is the one that complains the most and doesn't want to do things. And, look at Kyrie right now, not playing most of the season because he's injured, you know,
Hmm.
but it's mainly probably because if Durant was out there, he'd probably be playing through these injuries. And it's
Right.
like,
Oh
because they would
yeah.
be a good team. Pippen, oh, I'm not going to play because I don't want not the last shot, when Jordan wasn't on the team. But
Yeah.
then, so,
And
and then you
it's
saw at the end, Pippen, was it 98 or what year was it that he was dealing with back spasms? And still, like, he would go out to the locker room and they'd massage him down and he'd come back out and play. And it was like a change in Pippen from when Jordan
yeah.
wasn't on the team, when Jordan was on the team playing and they were about to win the championship. He's like, oh, I'll be out there then. But
Yeah.
when Jordan wasn't on the team and they weren't going to win the NBA championship, he's like, I'm not going to take the last shot. I'm not playing. Sat down. So it's
Yeah.
like I can see the kind of similarities between Kyrie Irving and Scottie Pippen in that way.
I'd hate to be that mean to Scottie Pippen, but I get it. And even after that, when he was talking about it, and he was like, "I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have done it differently." It's like, really?
Well, dig down. Like
Gosh.
it's the same thing we deal with politicians and people like that, where they double it. Recently, instead of apologizing or backing out of things, they're just doubling down on things. No, I'm
Right.
sure I said that, and it's like Pippen's like, you can't change the past, so you might as well just double down on it and be like, that's who I am, and so on, and
I
you know.
guess. Yeah.
And then talking about money in that aspect, the other one that really bothered me was the Pippen in the 5-year, $18 million contract he signed.
Yeah.
And the owner of the
Did
team
feel.
was like, don't do this, man. You're going to be better than you think you are, and you're going to make a better contract. If you sign this 5-year, $18 million contract, I'm not going to renegotiate with you. And he
Yeah.
signed it, and his reasoning was, I needed the stability and the knowing that I'm going to make that money. And he took that
Yeah.
reward over the risk. And then 3 years into his contract, 2 years into his contract, he asked for a renegotiation because he doesn't make enough money. And it's like, well, you chose one avenue that some
Right.
people choose, and you
We
could have
warned
chosen
you.
so no. And then he had a bad relationship with the owner, and it's like
Yeah.
you chose to do this. I don't understand the you know
Yeah.
and you
You
had a good
whine
reason.
about the decision that you made.
And
So
he had a good reason. I mean, think about it. If you
yeah.
were put in a situation like that, hey, you might make $36 million over the next 5 years, or you're guaranteed to make 18. Most of us would say, I want to guarantee the 18.
Yeah.
Like most of us would say that because of the fact that now in your mind, I'm going to make $18 million.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'll get you money this year and I'll get you money next year and then potentially another $18 million. Like, well, I don't know.
It's rough.
I might make only $3 million. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's a difficult decision when there's that much money on the table. But if you make the decision, you have to live with the decision. You can't just.
Yeah. Right. And then it's like I get being like I made a horrible decision, blah blah blah. But to then take it out on your team and have it affect your teammates and your all of that stuff and sit out, and it's just like
Yeah. No
make your
wonder it
bed,
was like
sleep in
at
it.
the end of his career, his injuries obviously plagued him, but no wonder he never continued on after Michael Jordan to be this
Yeah.
star, because and he lived in the shadow of Michael Jordan. He was the second best player on the team the entire time Jordan was on that team. Like
Yeah.
everything. If it was, there were some categories that Jordan was number two and he was number one, but most of the categories was Jordan was number one and then Pippen was number
Yeah.
two. Um, and I mean, he was a good player because obviously the 93, 94 Bulls, or 94, 95, the year that Michael Jordan retired, the
I
Bulls
think
were a
it's
good team.
94. Yeah.
They were a really good team. They just didn't
They were
finish,
close.
so, but
Yeah.
it was a crazy series to watch because like the Last Dance, or trying on, if anybody who doesn't know, the Last Dance was a documentary series. I can't believe it took so long for it to come out. Like they filmed most of this in the 90s. Why is
Yeah.
it that they? Was it because they couldn't get players to sit down and talk till this long? It just did.
I Well,
It's
Jordan's
20.
like notorious for not doing interviews, so I wonder if they waited on him
It was
to be,
20 years until this thing came out, basically, because they filmed it all through the 90s, and it was 1998, the 97, 98 season, which is that like unprecedented, like let them have all the access they wanted and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm surprised it didn't come out in like 2000, not
right.
now, which I'm kind of glad it did, because it kind of like 2000 would have been so fresh and so new that,
Yeah.
like, years later,
It's
but like,
it's funny too, like because this has been like I remember hearing about this like a year ago, knowing it was coming out, and then to know that it landed like right at the perfect time of this whole quarantine thing makes you wonder: did
hmm,
Michael Jordan plan
I,
COVID-19?
I think he did. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Bill
But I mean,
Gates and Michael Jordan.
here's the other thing, talking about contracts and stuff like that. Do you think that Jerry Krause, the GM for the
Mm.
Bulls during the 90s, would have lasted more than a year in current NBA standards for the way he ran that team?
I don't know. You
It's
look at teams that produce. If I mean, hey, if you're winning one, two, three, four, like rings, it almost makes you think, hey, the
but
guy's horrible, but
I
he's
guess
doing it.
and rephrase that is the 97, 98 Bulls, the Last Dance Bulls. Like when he came through and said, you're possibly could win your sixth championship, Phil Jackson,
I'm
but you're
still
not
blowing it.
coming back. Yeah, you're still done after this season. And then you're risking Michael Jordan going, I'm going to retire after this season. And Pippen wanted to be traded. And all the, like blowing a team up that just won 6 NBA championships in what, 7, 8 years.
Yeah,
Like to talk about that and then go, oh, I just feel like there's no way the fans would let them have it. It was the way that social media is in the internet and all that stuff.
it's
I feel
true.
like the fans. I mean, did you ever see the movie Game Day? Not game. Is it Game Day? Draft Day with Kevin Costner. It's
I
a
think so.
uh, fiction um, story about he's the GM of the Cleveland Browns, and it's about all about the NFL Draft Day and what he does to make trades and things like that
Yeah.
to make the draft. Um, and one of the guys trades the first overall pick to another team, and he looks out his GM window, and there's people outside with like fake blow up dolls of him, like stabbing him and all. Like they just
Oh
they,
yeah.
they were there, like upset about it. And I'm thinking to myself, that Jerry Krause says at the beginning of the season, Danny Ainge says at the beginning of this season, whether the Celtics win the NBA championship or not, and your
Right.
head coach is fired, and we're trading Tatum, and we're gonna trade Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker. I don't think the NBA Celtics fans would let them do that. Like I feel like
Yeah.
they would be so much that they'd make the Grossmans and the people who own the team fire Danny Ainge before he was allowed to fire all these other people. I
Yeah.
just think with the social media would have, there may have been a seventh championship for the Bulls if
Yeah.
if Jerry Krause wasn't in the
Social
chair.
media just changes everything about
Mm-hmm.
like a news story that takes a week to kind of gain steam back then is minutes now. And so it probably wouldn't have gotten to that point, I bet. But at the same, I wonder how much of that fire is what won them, contributed to them winning not just that championship, but other years where
Mm-hmm.
they had that poor relationship where he felt like he was the mastermind behind the team, not Michael Jordan. All this crazy stuff. How much of that fueled them on? But at the same time, you see all this Michael Jordan just being a complete jerk to that guy, and like I heard something Michael Jordan said like, "Oh, when you get done watching this, you're gonna think I'm a complete jerk." And there were aspects I was like, man,
do,
he's
do
kind
you
of a
think
dink.
do you think that if you look and watch NBA Space Jam, the leader of Monstars, the Monstar Mountain, whatever. He kind of
Yeah.
looks like Jerry Krause in a sense. I'm wondering if there was a
Yeah.
correlation to that at all. Like this like short, stubby, chunky guy that.
It's possible.
But yeah, I just think social media is crazy, and some of the stuff we talk about. I talk about how like I love the show X Files and even the show
Yeah.
Seinfeld, where I don't think those shows could be made in 2020 because of the introduction of cell phone and the internet and all this stuff. Like on X Files, they had to like go see people to do investigations on UFOs and
Yeah.
stuff. Nowadays we could just you and I could do all that investigations from our houses. We could just sit here
Right.
and type on the internet, text people, call people. There's times where like Mulder got stuck out in the woods but didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
In nowadays, he'd be like, no, you'd have a cell phone or some way to call someone or get a hold of someone. Same thing with Seinfeld. It was like, oh, we missed you. Where were you? Because the movie theater. And it's like, well, if you
Mhm.
had a cell phone, they would have been able to call each other or text each other and be like, we're at a different movie
Right.
theater. So there's like
Like
some
that
of those
whole.
things that change because of the time of the life that it was put into.
Yeah.
Same thing with this Last Dance team. Would the Bulls won as many championships if it wasn't for the lack of social media being on Jordan and
Yeah.
all that stuff? There's a pressure that's on the NBA athletes nowadays just by performing. If you have one
Right.
bad game, Twitter's all over you. Like you can never have a bad game nowadays without someone being all over you for no
Oh yeah.
reason at
Even
all.
if you have a good game, people are all over you for something.
Oh, you
That.
scored 38, not 40 points. What the heck? Like that,
Yeah.
or you
Oh,
didn't
40
get a triple
points.
double.
Yeah, you had 2 assists all night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like look at James Harden. The guy gets like 40 to 50 points a night. People still trash on him for something.
You
I
know,
mean, I
you know
don't
that
like James
3-pointer
Harden.
you missed in the second quarter.
Yeah,
So like it is
you hit
interesting to see how
15 of them
teams are
all
different.
night. You couldn't hit one more.
But do you one quick fact? Last thing I want to talk about on the Last Dance. But did you know that the 1993 NBA Finals, Game 6, the Paxton he sought the last second shot with 5 seconds left. There was like 3 seconds left after he made it. The 3-pointer to put him ahead. He was the only player that wasn't Michael Jordan that scored in the fourth quarter of that game.
Hmm.
Like, I love John Paxson, man. Paxson, Kerr, you
Yeah,
know, not to talk
it's
race or anything like that, but as a white male growing up watching NBA, we obviously Celtics fans, we love Larry Bird and so on. But like Steve Kerr for the Bulls and John Paxson for the Bulls in the 90s, it was like those were our dudes.
yeah,
Scrawny little white guys who can shoot threes. It was like that's my guy right there.
yeah. There wasn't many.
No,
There still isn't many like good quality white
yeah,
athletes that play basketball.
it's just, but it's also because of things. There's other things I talk about, like tell me as someone who hikes Everest or does all this hiking and fishing in Maine. We talked about the other day. It's like it's what you brought up in, what culture you're brought up in, of where the
Yeah,
sports are. Basketball is really easy to play in inner cities, in places that have high population of minorities, and that's why basketball's taken off in those places. We haven't, basketball's not like there's not how many NBA players are from Maine. I can't even name one. You know, how many
yeah,
baseball players? There's only a few baseball players that come from Maine. Honestly, how many actors are from it? So there's like Maine has their own
yeah,
things. Like if there was a Hall of Fame for like lobstermen and hiking and all this stuff, then
yeah.
yes, that we would be having. So where you grew up and what you grew up and what's around you does make a difference in what you are good and not good at, and that's the reason why. But when you see that Steve Kerr looks like my uncle too, which is kind of cool. My uncle and him, when I was growing up, they look like twins. So I'm always like, "Hey, Uncle John, you're playing for the Bulls." But
Oh, that's funny.
the Raptors plan to travel to Florida yesterday. So I don't know if they actually did or not. Their Instagram hasn't been updated since Father's Day, but they were heading to Florida.
That's a
So
travesty.
the Raptors, yeah, let's let them get all the COVID first, and then have us all this.
Yeah,
We'll test you out first, see if you are any good down there. But I mean, so they did move it to the 30th. 31st was what we talked last time. The 30th is now when they're going to start. Supposedly, I
of
don't know,
June.
or July.
Okay.
So we're
Is
still a
there?
month away.
Yeah, and I heard that there'll be some like exhibition games. I think.
I would think. I mean, can you
Which,
imagine just starting the season? Just
well,
like, oh, start playing.
yeah,
I still
be
think they should
interesting.
have done street games, man. Like outside, Or like move it to like the end of the season as a 3-on-3 tournament.
I was just in my head thinking they should do a 3-on-3. Pick your
Tie
best three.
the game's tied at the end of the game. It goes into a 3-point competition, and if that's tied, it's a dunk competition. Just make a
They should think
spectacle out of
about
it.
that. Like, you know how hockey's got a
Yeah.
shootout? What if, like, you have an overtime, but if it goes to double overtime, let's just do a 3-on-3 NBA Jam style 5-minute
Well, we talked about the idea. A friend, like
half court.
when I was writing basketball down writing sports down in Massachusetts. One of the things we talked about is that the NHL they do 5-on-5, and then the overtimes usually 4-on-4 or 3-on-3, depending on. But just go every overtime, take away some players. So the
Yeah.
NBA, it's like first overtime, it goes to 4-on-4 instead of 5-on-5, and then if you go to a second overtime, it goes to 3-on-3.
Yeah.
And then
Half
after
court.
that, you'd have to figure something else out. But like, I just think because you
Although,
open up space and you open up people to do isolations a
yeah,
little bit more and so on, like it would score, like it would be a difference. So you'd have to try to, if your team was good at that, then you would be beneficial to go into overtime. If your
right.
team wasn't good at that, then you would not be beneficial to go into overtime. So it's like,
I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm not a huge hockey, like, I love hockey, but I don't watch a ton of it.
mhm.
But I hate seeing a game that ends with a shootout. Like, there's nothing worse to win a game or to lose a game with a shootout. Obviously, you take the win wherever you get it, but to know that you lost because of a shootout, that drives me nuts.
It would be like ending a baseball game in a home run derby.
Yeah,
You have 5 swings or whatever. You have 5 different players to try to get a home run. If you get a home run, you get a point.
yeah,
Like it's you one single player offensively versus one single player defensively. So this
yeah.
entire 3-period game, ends with a goaltender is your only defense. Like it
With
doesn't make any sense to me. Like
yeah,
why how much pressure does that put on a goaltender? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you're the,
Right.
you played your butt off. It's 0-0 the entire game. You played
And
your
now you
butt off.
gotta, yeah,
One-on-one, you have to stop a player. Some of these players that have been like playing forever and can do all these different moves, and you've got like 6 different moves you can do in the net,
right.
and it's your responsibility to stop this entire.
We should end NBA games with half court shots
Well, nowadays they're in games
or dunk competition.
because I was laughing in the Last Dance documentary. There was an episode where they were shooting from like the NBA logo, kind of like
Yeah,
towards the end. You know where the red Arbok court is on the side. It's kind of like in front of the
yeah.
scorer's table, but not at half court. It's like kind of like in a weird spot right there in front of the bench. And they were
Hmm.
shooting shots from there. Steve Kerr shot one, and Pippen shot one, and Jordan was the last one to shoot one, and everybody missed it. But you're looking at them shooting it; it looked like they were straining their bodies so much to shoot from that far away. And I'm
Yeah,
like, dude, that's like where Harden and
I know
Curry and
that's
these
like
players
Curry's
just
sweet spot.
Damian Lillard just stands there and shoots a ball like it's nothing and swishes it. And all these NBA players back in the 90s couldn't even get it to the basket. And it's like, what is going on? That's why I think at All-Star game, we should change it. And anything that's back that far should be a 4-pointer.
Yeah. Well, I liked how they made some adjustments to the All-Star game this year. Like it actually had a level of competition
Oh,
finally, which was like good to see. So it kind of makes not that the All-Star game and the way the season's going to pick back up is going to be anything like this, but I think it would be cool to have, all the players watching all the games. Like, I don't know, they're not going to be at every one of them, but
mm.
it'll be a level of like trash talk between, like you get fans yelling at the players and stuff like that. What if there's like trash talk among players and in the stands and players on the court? Like that could be kind of fun. That kind of stuff. Who knows?
It would be cool. I don't know. I just, like I said, you ever remember MTV Jams? They used to have like that 10, like a 30-foot hoop and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so do stuff like that would be kind of fun. It's funny how you
Forgot
mentioned the
about
All-Star
that.
game.
Yeah.
COVID has made me forget about how awesome that All-Star game was. And we're going to forget that in this whole NBA season because of the fact that
Right.
like this whole thing, that was one of the most perfect things that happened this season. And then we ended up
Yeah.
postponing the rest of the season, and we're going to be focused on this now, not the All-Star game, which is, I mean, it should be anyway. But
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of basketball talk. We talked before, Brian and I, about making one or every other episode a couple of short ones. Not the past couple of episodes we've done about an hour and a half, And after a little while, I've had a couple people be like, I
We
dropped in
get
after
rolling.
45 minutes, and I'm like, it is what it is. We're gonna talk other things next time when Brian, hopefully, and then I think Brian and I are gonna do a special episode as we get closer to the NBA returning, hopefully. That's
Yes,
specifically about more details about it. We'll make
that
some
would be fun.
predictions. So it'll be kind of cool, like what we see. We'll try to remove our Celtics hats and shirts and do something just like what we actually see happening
Mhm.
in the NBA and not just what we want to see. And so we'll do that as we get closer. But for right now, we just wanted to talk a little bit more about the NBA coming back on the end of July and some of the Last Dance stuff. If you haven't seen the Last Dance, watch it. It's really worth it.
It's good.
If you have, I think now on cable and things like that. I think if you watch on demand now, we watched ours on YouTube TV.
I
But if you
think it.
don't,
I think it was made in partnership with Netflix too. So I bet
so
it'll
at
be hitting
some
that
point,
soon.
yeah, at some point will be on Netflix. It's 10 episodes, but they're really worth it, and it's really well done. Like where they didn't just do like linear, like timeline. It was like they jumped back and forth. I did like some early 90s things, and then
Which
just
kind of
went to
annoyed me at spots because I'm like, what year is this? Jeez, why can't they just go from the beginning to the end? But
But I understood why they did it. And there were some cool aspects of it that made it really cool to
yeah,
watch. And even Taylor, who's not huge into basketball, but she would watch basketball over other things,
mhm,
was interested in watching it and learning some things about Michael Jordan. How honestly how
yeah,
badass he was, just fearless and like using his mind games to play himself up. And you never wanted to say anything bad about Michael Jordan because the next time he saw you, he was going to humiliate you and be
yeah,
proud of it. Like, oh, look at that, missed the 3-pointer. And next time he scores 55 points on you, and your ankles get
right,
twisted. And yeah, so it's one of those things you learn never to trash talk Michael Jordan. And I think people don't do it nowadays even.
yeah.
But
He'll
so
find you.
go to Unrest Coffee. I just got mine on Saturday. Get some Unrest coffee. It's really delicious. That's what I've got going on right
Drink it
here.
up.
Some iced coffee, Unrest. And I guess we'll talk next time. Next week, I hopefully have a cool guest on next week. I'm just gonna check in with him again before I announce anything. But I think we're pretty excited about that one.
Sweet.
Follow us everywhere. Just another podcast, right?
Everywhere.
I'll see Brian in a couple weeks. Happy Father's Day, man.
Well, thank you. It
Yeah,
was a good day.
it was. I bet it was. You have a pool.
Yeah, we swam a lot this weekend.
But
Nice.
you can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook and on Spotify, and we're now working on getting on Pandora and Stitcher and all the places. Just find us on there. We have been Just Another Podcast. I'm Justin. See you later, Brian.
See ya.